Hello, welcome to a new Tabletop Impulse video in a weird and different format with an idea that's about 10 months old. So if you're a long-time follower of my channel, you'll be aware of this, well, let's call it an alternative tier list. Let's call it a way of expressing the different kinds of teams that exist in the game. So it's a two-axis thing, a four-quadrant chart. The internet loves a four-quadrant chart, and the four-quadrant chart has two axes. In the centre, you'll see the horde, the horde to elite axis, right? And this is basically talking about the number of models that exist in a team. Okay, the number of activations that they can field, and then up here, you'll see the stats versus tricks axis, okay? And this is to what extent a team relies on its raw power, right? The stats on its weapons, the number of wounds that it has, and things like that, versus to what extent a team relies on its special abilities. Okay, so for example, right up here in the top corner, you've got the intercessors, okay? They are a team without very many special abilities, okay, who are heavily reliant on their stats and their meaty wounds characteristic. And just below them, you've got the legionaries, okay? And then down here, with the same number of models, but considerably more tricky, we have the Phobos, right? Now then, this is missing quite a few teams. Okay, we're missing Arbites, we're missing Dark Eldar, we're missing Hearthkin, we're missing Beastmen, we're missing the Inquisition, the Chaos Cults, and Strike Force Justian. But this is where we had the graph. This is where we had the graph 10 months ago when last we looked at this. So we're going to start, I think, by assessing where we've put everything and seeing if we still agree with it. Well, we are not quite a year on, nearly a year on, and there are still no teams that have less than six people. I mean, less than six people. There are no teams that have less than six people. So what I'm going to do to make room for Chaos Cults, right? Because wherever Chaos Cults need to be is somewhere on the Horde to Elite axis. They need to be somewhere to the left of the Vet Guard. We didn't think that the Vet Guard would. Obviously, when I set this out originally, I thought there was more chance of there being a team more elite than Space Marines than I did think there was a chance of there being a team more Horde than Vet Guard. It turns out I was wrong, but that probably says something really interesting. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move all my 6-man teams and say they are the most elite thing going. Right? Now, I'm very aware that the Phobos are basically obscured by my face. Okay, but we can remember that the Phobos are there. I know, such professionalism. Right, and we know, don't we, that the Thousand Suns are sort of here in this awkward point because they're very much an elite team, but they cannot be because they can take piles of goats. They're one of the few teams that doesn't really have an agreed mono build. Right, so we're going to move all these things over. We're going to move all these things over a bit, okay? Which ends with us sort of calling, oh, hello. Why are you here? Interesting. That there. So these end up going over the centre line. Again, these are weird, aren't they? Because they've got the little monsters. But in general, they're a more elite team. Right. And we're going to have to move everybody along. Which makes sense, really. So that our 10-man teams are more in the middle, right? Like this. Now these should all be occupying exactly the same point, because these are all our 10-man teams. This is the 10-man zone over here, right? And these should all really be occupying the same point, but obviously, you know, the left and the right here doesn't mean. In fact, since we're doing this, commandos should be a little further this way, right? Right? Because commandos now can have that extra activation. Yeah? So commandos go more like there. Admech are more like up here. Tau. Voidscarred. Breachers. And cultists. Alright. And what that has allowed us to do, we're going to grab our Chaos Cults. Okay, whoops. We're going to grab our Chaos Cults and we can put them somewhere here on this back line. Now, the Chaos Cults, they're definitely a Horde team. Do they rely on their brute stats or do they rely on their tricks? I mean, they have a very interesting mechanic of gearing up and mutating their guys. But I think in general they're a stats team, at least to the same extent as Pathfinders, I would say. So we're going to drop them here, on the midpoint. They're not one of the true stats teams that has like nothing else going for them but their raw killing power. Okay, but they're going to go here. Wonderful. What else have we got to add? Well, we've got the Adeptus Arbites, okay. Now, the Adeptus Arbites are a funny one because they belong somewhere in the 10 model pile. Okay. Are they a tricky team? Are they as tricky as Novitiates or Starstriders? Or are they a bit less tricky like Genestealer Cults? I think they're up here, aren't they? They're alongside Kroot, who are kind of in that place where they're trying to be a tricky team, but if we're being perfectly honest, they don't really accomplish anything. Okay? This is kind of the... I mean, look, Breachers are a really good team. I think Breachers actually deserve to be a little bit further up here. Okay. Right. Yeah. I'm happy with that. So we've kind of got this valley of despair here where the teams don't really appear to do much or enough. Yeah, I think so. Then we've got Hand of the Archon, right? Where do we place down Hand of the Archon? Well, slightly more elite, quite tricky. I think they're going in a very similar place, actually, to the Necrons, predictably enough. I think we're going to put them just down there, I think. Yep. Cool. What have we got now? Well, the Votann. The Votann are definitely a stats team, right? The Votann are very similar, aren't they, to the Kazakin. They're not as good, right? But this metric doesn't actually take into account goodness. I think they're a wee bit trickier than the Kazakin, aren't they? Because they've got a jetpack guy, you know, they've got their grudge mechanic. And their movement stats, not very good. So let's say, about there. Okay. Beastmen. Beastmen are definitely a more tricky team. But then their one trick is survivability. Are they actually, you know, and they rely on their stats to kill things. Beastmen are interesting, aren't they? Let's say, you see, does this mean the model's starting to break down? Where would you classify Beastmen? Are they a team that works based on their killing power? Do they just have the raw stats on their cards? No, they rely, don't they, on their... They're like a more effective version of Kroot. Okay? Aren't they? In a way? I'm going to put them here. Okay? Yeah, I'm going to put them here. Yeah. In this line. Let's drop them here for convenience's sake. partially inaccurate because of obviously space that we're losing on the. I don't overlap the thing. Should really be a point, and points should be allowed to overlap. But alas, Inquisition. Well, Inquisition are obviously a tricky team. Inquisition are a bit more hoardy than most teams, aren't they? So we'll say, pop the Inquisition down there. I think that makes sense. Are they that tricky? Are they as tricky as Novitiates or Star Striders? Oh, let's put them here. Right. Strike Force Justian. Well, we know just what to do with Strike Force Justian, don't we? Strike Force Justian basically causes us to reevaluate what's happening over here. Strike Force Justian has to go way up to the top corner. And that's all the new teams. That's all the new teams plotted on the map. Let's sanity check that, because I've done that very, very quickly. Right? So we've got Strike Force Justian, Intercession, Legionary. And behind my portrait, annoyingly, hiding, look, there he is, right? Phobos. And these are our straightforward 6-man elite teams. Yeah? Yeah, all Marines, all together on the end. And then we've got the Thousand Suns, who are sort of neither here nor there, because they could be over here, because they could be called a 6-man elite team, if you take just Thousand Suns, or you can take all goats, and they're all the way over here. So we sort of drop them down there, because they're interesting, in that they don't fit our model. And they're not quite as tricky as Phobos, but they're quite tricky, so we'll put them there, right? Then we've got Harlequins up here in an 8-man team, and reasonably punchy and statty all by themselves. And then here's our sort of mid-tier of teams. Here's our 10-man chunk. These are all our 10-man human teams, and these are our teams here that can have a few more than 10 men. Okay. And then here's our 12 and 14-man teams on the end. And I think we pretty well have them well plotted. Now let's see what trends. What trends, if any, do we have here? What trends, if any, do we have here? And which teams are basically decent. So what I'm going to do, on the fly, because why not? Let's just grab this, just like that, right? And what we can do here is we're going to come along, bring that into the shot. Yes. Let's shrink it down a little bit. I know. Why did I decide to do this live? Why didn't I prepare? Oh, you love it though, don't you? Right. Excellent. Right, that's what we got. And now we're going to draw on this. Okay, now we're going to draw on this so we can talk about what we're talking about. So, let's have a nice a purpley colour. So, we kind of want to talk about our 10-man. These are our 10-man teams. Okay. There's our purple zone. There's our 10-man zone. We're going to have our marine zone. That's got to be blue. Here's our marine zone up here. Okay. We've got some unlovable weirdos. So, oops, no, we want one of these. We're going to talk about, with lime, we're going to talk about our, no, I don't want to do lime yet, actually. I want to save lime for something else. You'll see. We're going to use this nice lemon colour, right? This is basically the weird zone. These things are odd. Okay, and then finally, we've got the horde zone. The horde zone over here. Right? Now, the purple zone and the blue zone, I feel like everybody knows what those things are, right? If you're a 10-man team, or if you're a 6-man elite team, like, you conform to a very common sort of understanding of what Kill Team is all about. And if there's anything we can very quickly tell from this chart, It's that we could stand to have a few more elite teams, right? We could stand to have a few more elite teams. So I'm thinking, Deathwatch, Grey Knights, they were in those white box rumours, weren't they? Right? We could stand to have a bit more diversity up here because we've got 3 kinds of Imperial Space Marines and Chaos Legionaries. And I think elite teams are really cool, right? And I think it would be cool to see a few more kinds of elite teams up here in the elite team zone. I think also the yellow box is pretty empty, right? Considering that really 1,000 Suns don't even belong where I've put them. 1,000 Suns could either be right away at 6-man elite, or they could be right in 10-man horde and all ports in between. They are really there as an abstraction. But this is the zone of things that don't really fit and don't really make a great deal of sense. Okay, Necrons, are they an elite team? Harlequins, are they an elite team? I mean, the Plague guys could easily have gone right the way to the end of Horde, if you count the little tiny Watsits. But at their core, I contend they're about their kind of 4 really big guys. I think here in the yellow zone is perhaps the most interesting design space. Right? Because these are the teams that are all working a little bit of a weird way. They're not all really high powered. Let's do that. That's what I wanted the green for, right? So which of these teams are commonly regarded these days as being good? So I'm not going to do a tier list per se. I'm just going to go through and go, well, these are the teams that you hear talk about. Okay? So definitely Phobos. Thank you, Ace. Right? There's a lot of hype about Phobos. There's a lot of hype about Intercession. Legionaries still doing really well. Legionaries, I think you hear about Legionaries. Nobody seems to like 1,000 Suns. Harlequins, I think, are still a team that people talk about and people play. And I would say the Galapox, I think people do still play Galapox, right? And then in the 10-man zone, what's popular? Well, Star Striders, people say they're a good pick. Novitiates, nobody plays them. GC of the Cults apparently didn't need a buff. Corsairs are apparently the definition of meh. Arbites, apparently they need a buff. Kroot, nobody really plays Kroot, does well with them. Is it the case that the 10-man team zone is pretty cursed? Apart from Star Striders did just win or come second in Spain in a big tournament, is the 10-man team zone? Look, I'm not a big competitive player who knows a lot about the scenes. Maybe I've totally missed something, but is this zone cursed? Whereas let's look at the pale blue zone here. Well, I mean, Commandos. I could just ring this twice, okay? Because Commandos are really popular at the moment. All right, Breaches. People go on about Breaches. I mean, Vet Guard are still, I think, good. And Chaos Cults, I think, are still considered to be a really good team. And Tau Pathfinders, I think, are really good. You don't hear much about the old Adeptus Mechanicus anymore. Inquisition, I think. Machuez plays Inquisition, doesn't he? Inquisition regarded as pretty good. I think I've circled the teams there that I consider to be someone who actually knows more about the meta. You know, there's going to be somebody from one of these. Like, there's going to be, I realise this is not a channel that you go to for gameplay considerations, but I think I've circled in green the teams that people think of as being the competitive teams. Just for fun, let's circle in red the teams. These are the teams people talk about sucking. Okay, so Hearthkin, yeah. People say they. I know that Ace won with Hearthkin at the Grand Tournament. I'm just gonna say that's what a guy, But I don't think that's representative of everything. I think people have a perception that Kroot kind of suck. I think there's certainly a perception that Thousand Sons kind of suck, to be fair. Don't know if it's true, but its perception is there. And then everyone else... Oh, Arbeits. And the people I haven't circled are kind of the ones in the middle. I mean, I think. And I'm not saying that this is borne out by data. I'm saying this is the feelings and the thoughts and the feelings that you get online. By and large, from what I've... the things in white, the things that I've left in like Bloodied, Admech, Necrons, Dark Eldar, Novitiates, Genestealer Cults, Corsairs, the Goats, the Kazakin. People just don't talk about those teams very much. At least not in the circles that I frequent. The ones in red, I've definitely heard people saying how bad they are. And the ones in green, I've definitely heard people sort of say they're really good or fearing them or what have you. I've not talked about Strikeforce Justian because I think Strikeforce Justian has not been around long enough for people to have really handle. Most of the chat that I see about Strikeforce Justian is people saying, it's not quite as powerful as Intercession, but we'll see. It's more of an unknown. For anything else, apart from anything else, Strikeforce Justian really needs its, FAQ. What archetypes is it supposed to have? How many shots does the Heavy Bolter get? These kind of questions are important for Strikeforce Justian. So that's my take on an alternative tier list, I guess. Because I can't put things into a tier list. I'm not the guy that you come to for competitive analysis. But I did do this model, and if you've no idea what's going on, go and watch. There's a video from about 10 months ago that's got a thumbnail that looks very much like this thumbnail that's about this, and it explains. It's got a slideshow, explains in more detail what we're about. But I just wanted to get straight into it today, and I think I'm sure somebody's going to point out to me in the chat, because actually off the top of my head there are certain teams I can't honestly recall how many people are in a Dark Eldar team. I'm hoping it's more than 10, less than 10. I seem to recall they have less than 10 men. Right, they have 8. But then, I'm sure someone's going to explain that I've got something wrong. But apart from that, I think that's, Should Corsairs be over? Do they have less than 8? Should there be an elf zone? But Corsairs were there when I loaded it in last time. I don't play elves. I'm sure I've misplaced an elf. But apart from the nagging feeling that I've misplaced my elves, I think I stand by the rest of this. I can hear the typing now. You have indeed misplaced an elf. If you simply look in the rules, you will find... But, that's what you get for doing things on the fly and not having actually played every team. But I think I stand by this. So what I want you to do in the comments is tell me where I've gone wrong. Tell me where you agree. Tell me if you think this model is useful. And I think the most useful thing about this model is... Look how many green rings are in that light blue zone. Right? Is a team with more than 10 models just automatically pretty good? Pretty good. Pretty good. Like, in terms of the chat. And then you got, on the other end, you got the elite teams, who are all also, the 6-man elite teams, also pretty good. Does it just kind of suck to be in the middle? I mean, you've got this zone up here of things that are in the middle that are very statty, yeah, and you've got this zone down, and you've got the Star Striders down here that just are a bit popular, I think, with some of their abilities, but I think I stand by this. So let me know in the comments what you think. If you like the video, let me know, and if you haven't subscribed, then please do feel free to do that. That really helps. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers, and right now I'm on like 1.4k, so every little helps, like they say in the adverts. If you're not a member of the Discord, please do consider going to join the Discord. And if you've hated this format, I'm sure I'll be back to a PowerPoint at some point soon. I just thought you might gain something from watching me make it live. And that is certainly that. So thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great evening, and I'll see you on Saturday when I'll be certainly putting up a video straight after the Warhammer the Warhammer Day reveals, and we're hoping to see exactly what those orange bases signify. Bye bye.